You can start it.
Yeah, I just started recording.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, yeah, we are discussing the config ref, let's say, changes that we want to do in R2 with Ronak.
Okay.
Do you want me to put my slide, or I will start with, because I shared, actually, where is it? With Sagar, I shared actually here. Okay. I shared a proposal. Did I do it myself on the APIs? Where did I do it? I think I was. I have made a proposal already, but there is more to be done here. This is the API. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I actually prototyped it here. So first of all, yeah, so we need to do a few changes. So that is, I think, one, we have to change the API spec as a starting point, right? Because that's where everything
Okay.
So that is in the Nephew API repo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is
Okay.
the NF deployment V1 alpha.
Okay.
So one of the things that we wanted to do is, instead of having an SMF deployment and UPF deployment and AMF deployment types, we want to have one type, okay?
Okay. Are you sharing your screen or?
Wait, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, sorry, that's that would be difficult to meet. Sorry about that. You see it now?
Yeah, it's visible now. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so there is, okay, so there is do I need to make it bigger, or is it okay?
Yeah, is it fine?
Yeah, so we have NF deployment V1 alpha, right?
Okay.
So we wanted to, so today we have SMF deployment, right?
Yeah.
AMF, UPF deployment, AMF deployment. I think the idea is to refactor this to have only one, which is NF deployment, right?
Okay.
So I did this change here. I mean, I just did it because Sagar was asking for it, because I think for the run, they wanted to reuse already this, they want to use this already. Now, so basically we have to introduce, so this did not exist, right? So I did a change here. So I added this.
Okay.
The disadvantage of, doing this is that by not having an SMF and a UPF and an AMF, is that means that all the controllers that would subscribe, so if you have three controllers like AMF, SMF, and UPF, and you have this, they will all get this CR, right? So when you so the way we want to, or the proposal to overcome this is that we, by introducing this provider concept.
Okay.
So the provider is a mechanism to say, to do two things: is indicate the type and indicate the potentially the vendor as well. So for example, here you could say upf.free5gc. Is it org, right? The free5gc.org, right? So if let's say you have both OAI operator and free5gc operator running, then what would happen is that one will basically say, okay, this is not for me, I'm done, right? So I stop doing work, and the other one will say, I match this provider, and so I will continue, right?
But this needs to be changed for every vendor, right?
Wait, so this will be an opaque, so this thing is a string, right? So what needs to happen is that there needs to be a registry, and that's why it should be like a DNS name, right? So if you have free5gc.org, right? Or .org or .io, I don't know what. And then, so they manage their own namespace or DNS name somehow, right? In which case it becomes unique.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's similar to how our API system works today, because here we also have this, right? So this is actually our namespace, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? And so what we want for this to work, of course, is that this is kind of a namespace that will be unique for the various implementations that leverage this NF deployment, right?
Okay, but we have one question.
Yeah.
This type would be changed from vendor to vendor, right? If vendors change, we need to edit this as
No,
per
no,
the vendors.
no, no, no. So I take an example, right? If I have I'm going to screw up this repo, but if I have so the way it will look like is, so this is a string, right? So it's a string, so there will not be real type validation, right?
Okay.
So there is a trust in the system that the various people that use this will have a unique name for it, but we don't need to change the type.
Okay.
So what you see is that let me write here a YAML file, right? Example.yaml, right? So let's say so I have API version, right? Which is, what is it? Workload.nephew.org, right?
Yeah.
/v1 alpha1. And then we have kind, which is, this will be NF deployment, right? And then we have metadata. Let's call it name, which is free by the UPF, right? And then we have a spec, right? And then in the spec, we'll have a provider. And the provider will be, let's say, SMF dot, sorry, it has to be UPF. Right? So let's say, I don't know whether this is right, but every vendor has its freedom on how to use it.
Yeah.
.com or something like that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So this will be the UPF or free 5GC. You could basically create an operator that he doesn't, whether it's SMF, UPF, or so on, he basically takes them all, right? And he doesn't
Okay.
care.
Okay.
See, but
Fine.
in other words, the type here doesn't change. But for example, OAI for the radio, for example, would do OAI, let's call it VCU, right? And this would be VCU dot OAI. So it means the type here doesn't change, right? But of course, the content of the CR that is used for that kind is going to be, has to be unique, basically, right?
Yeah.
So we need to
What if multiple NFs defined here?
say again, sorry.
As we have defined multiple NFs, right? One is for UPF and one is for OI.
Yes.
So yeah, so if there will be a multiple NFs, then which it will pick up
So
in
if
that.
you write an operator now, right? So let's say I have so I'm just making this as a scratch board, right? So I have an operator. If I look at the Go code that you would have to write here, right? And you will build an operator, let's say, for this. So what you have to do in your code, if you say if cr.spec.provider, it will be a capital probably, right? And this will also be a capital, I guess. Provider
I should find.
equals this, right? Or is different than this, right? You basically say reconcile done, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then
Okay, got it.
else you continue. So this is a statement that you have to put in each of these providers based on your registry here.
Got it.
You see, so this is what we have to put inside of the provider. So in our implementation of Free 5GC and like UPF, SMF, and AMF, we have to put this in. So we have to agree on this statement here. So what the registry will be, right?
Okay.
And then, so I would propose, I think, what did we use? It's upf.freefivegc.nephew.io or something.
Towards
Is it org? Yeah, or org, right?
yeah.
So yeah, so that would be my proposal, that we take something like UPF dot, and then this is the UPF, and then for SMF we do SMF, and for AMF we do AMF.
Okay. So
Right?
we have to make this generic for all UPF, SMF, and EMF, right?
So yeah, so first of all, we have to change the API, right? Because they are in a separate repo. So we have to do this change, right? So we have to, actually I did the work more or less, right? What I'm wondering is should we remove SMF and UPF and AMF or not? But let's first discuss all the changes, right? So, but this is one, right? So this is
Okay.
introducing the type and then adding the provider to allow different operators to distinguish between them, right?
Okay.
The second thing I think I changed is instead of config ref, okay, I did not do the full thing here yet, but instead of config ref, we should create, so I think the name, they basically said we prefer parameters refs, right? So they
Yeah.
want to see the name, parameter. So what I did is I changed the name here, right? So so that's easy. But I also changed the type that is behind here because I think John made a statement that he doesn't want to have a reflection of various namespaces. So before this
Yeah.
was, yeah, so I made here a change to say I introduced the object reference. And so you can only specify API version, kind, and name and nothing
Okay.
else. And so so this is basically copied from ports more or less. So I changed the type here to be this type such that we only have these parameters that you can reference. So that's the second change that we have to do,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
So this is the first change. I think we have to probably commit, right, into the so we have to create a PR for this and get this in, right?
Okay.
What I'm wondering is whether we have to delete the others or whether we keep them, but they will have to bump the version because config ref is no longer. So we changed this, right? So that means that because these guys, see, this one is using this type, so we have to, if we keep it, we have to bump this version to v1 alpha. So we have to change this version to v1 alpha 2 somehow. So so if we delete all of this, which would be my preference, right?
But we can take backup, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Somewhere.
it's anyhow Git, right? So you can revert it. But my proposal would be to delete these, so they are no longer there.
Okay.
And then we keep v1 alpha 1 here because this kind did not exist yet. So we are not changing, we are not introducing a problem necessarily. The alternative is that we move this to v1 alpha 2, right? So we create a separate folder and we do all the changes in v1 alpha 2. But then we never have a v1 alpha 1 for NF deployment. So maybe we can
Okay.
bring this up, yeah, or we can discuss this on Slack. So
Sure.
I'll maybe start a thread on Slack, and then we'll see what people say. But I would prefer to obsolete these and do it like I just said. But let's see what the other people say, right?
Okay.
But that's
Uh,
so this is
but
change one. Yeah. Okay.
how can I taste this? If I made change for anyone like AMF and AMF or SMF or UPF, so how can I taste this?
What do you mean change this?
Not change. Actually, if we did the changes for those two, right? And
Yes.
I want to taste it.
Test it. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, taste it.
So what you would have to do, right, is then, so there is, of course, so this is change number one. The second change that you have to do is in the FreeFireGC operators that we built is have to, uh, so this you cannot test on your own, right? So this you have to test in conjunction with the operator.
Mhm.
So what you have to do is you have to, so there is, in my view, there is two things that has to be changed or that are depending on it. One is the FreeFireGC operator, right, that you have worked on.
Okay. Hmm.
and they have to reference this. And I think you have a test framework where you can test the changes that you make using this new API, not?
No, I don't.
You don't have a test bed for the workload?
For workload, yeah, I have it.
So what we would do is we modify the test bed to take into account this. That also would and so you would have to change the operator and include us in the test bed and then run the test that you run today because they should still work.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
testing, so you should do the testing with the in the workload cluster, right?
Okay.
The second thing that you so that's so this is number one. Number two is the workload. So you have to modify the operators to take to use this CRD. And then the third thing that has to happen is that in specialization they also use this API, and there is two things that I'm aware of that is using it. One is so we have this dependency. So if you take the Nefio repo, I'm assuming you are going to do all these changes, Ronak, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because it helps you to be familiar. I can help you, right? But it helps to be familiar with the code.
Sure, sure.
That's I think why we like or we prefer you guys to do it rather than I mean I can do it, but I think it's better that you do it than you have it would be more straightforward. So there is this function here. This function, see, we have one for AMF, SMF, and UPF.
UPF. Yeah.
This one would become one function. So there is no derivative anymore for this and that and that. It will always be the same. So that's so it will also obsolete this code quite a bit. Right?
Okay.
So in this code, you will have one for UPF, SMF, and AMF, and so we can make this pure NF deploy, right?
Okay.
And then there is one more. Where is that?
This code is available on Git.
Yeah, so this is in the Nefio repo, nefio.nefio.
Okay. 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 Okay.
So the function is this, right? And I think you also have to modify our pipeline tests because our pipeline tests are taken into account UPF and stuff like that. So we also have to obsolete. So this will become NF deployment. So this will be fairly straightforward to do. But this is something. So our pipeline tests are also are impacted because of this. Because now it will be NF deployment somehow. You see?
Okay. What exactly this function SDK will do?
So this is the specialization.
Okay.
So this is the thing that runs a specialization pipeline. So if we create a package, we so we manipulate the resources in that package. And so these functions are doing this. So this happens before it comes to the workload.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so where is I had a config ref. Yeah, so this is actually where the changes are in my view. So the pipeline test and NF deploy.
Okay.
Let me go to the GitHub to see whether there is. We are discussing this GitHub. Because I'm seeing to be missing one that I was thinking of. Here, yeah. So why don't I see this? So the other function that we have to modify is this one. Or we don't. Let me see how this works again. I know this will not change. No, I don't think this will change.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically only these two. So it's NF deploy and the pipeline test. So these two we have to modify. Right.
Fine. Yeah.
So these are the three changes basically. The person that did this, by the way, right, that actually implemented this function is Akash.
Akash. Okay.
You know him?
No,
He reached out to
I
me,
don't.
so maybe for this you can collaborate with him potentially, right?
Okay. Akash or Sagar?
No, Akash. So the person that did this is here. So Akash,
Chandrasekhara.
yeah. So
Okay.
he's in Bangalore. I think he works for
Yeah.
VMware. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Fine.
Let me ping him. Yeah. Do you want to? Because he reached out to me to work on the changes in NF deploy for the config in R2. Let me see what he says, right? Wait, so let me send him the invite and he can be one moment. Where do I share the invitation? I send it to you, right?
Yeah. Yes, I will.
Ah,
Until 2 more hours.
yeah. Let's see what he says. Where is my screen? I'm sharing my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so these are the changes. So if he cannot join, okay, yeah, it was a bit last minute anyhow. But maybe Akash can help you here, right? Because he did actually all of this.
Okay. Okay. I'll get in touch with him
Okay.
and accordingly proceed further.
So I think, Ronak, this change here, I think might be fairly important to do ASAP because I believe
Okay.
that I can send you the code, by the way, that I did, right? So
Sure.
I think it's on the Slack, actually. If you look to what I sent to Sagar, right here,
Yes.
it's exact code that I showed you because actually I did it. It's the same thing. So this code here is exactly the same
Okay.
that I showed. So we should probably create a PR for this ASAP, right, and get it approved. And
Okay.
my proposal is to delete the SMF, AMF, and so on. So maybe I can already start in Slack with the guys. Config ref/nf deployment. changes. I would prefer we delete the SMF deployment, AMS deployment, / UPF deployment from the API repo and only retain NF deployments. It would break backwards compatibility, but is Akash here?
Yeah, I joined recently.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for notice. So Akash, quick, right? So we are so in release 1, and you know very well, right? So we have both AMF, UPF, and SMF deployment as a CRD, right?
Yep.
Now, if we introduce run or other network functions, for every new function, we would have to create a new CRD, basically, right? And there are some people who don't like it. So we are in release 2, want to change the way that we do so. And so only have NF deployment as a CRD, but then have a concept of a provider that basically makes or gives an indication of what type and vendor we are dealing with, right? So, and that's an opaque object, basically. It's just a string. And I just give an example to Ronak here, how we would use it. So you would have NF deployment or could use it. So this would be the UPF provider of free 5GC, and this would be the VCU provider of OAI, right? Or it could, or this could be UPF for OAI, right? So what you have to do in the operator at the lowest level on the workload cluster, you would have to have a check if provider is you, right? I continue or I don't, right? So you have to have a statement somehow that does something like that, right?
Okay, so two things here. Are we talking about the KEP function, or this is about the operator controller on the workload cluster?
Yeah, so this change affects all of it, right? So that's why,
Yeah.
so so this is the API changes that we are proposing.
Okay.
And of course, then we are, so Ronak was agreeing to do all the changes, but I said, he knows very well the workload cluster, but I said, maybe if Akash is willing to help, you did all this work on the specialization, right? So it might be good to team up together to do it. That's why I reached out to you. I just, by the way, we are recording this session, just FYI. But yeah, so I said, maybe let's team up with Akash because it might be a lot of work if you are not familiar. But it would be also good for other people to understand the repo somehow. So maybe you can, so the idea was that you could work together on this.
Sure.
Yeah. But in specialization, we have to change the pipeline tests as well as, so the pipeline as well as the NF deploy function, right? To reflect this.
Got it. Yes, correct. We have to change the pipeline because the pipeline is the KEP function what we have written right now is generating. I think the code doesn't change.
Nope.
What changes? I think it's the kind and everything. Yeah.
I don't think it's a big deal. It's a lot of work. I don't think it's a huge effort, but if you don't know the code, okay, it will take a bit of time probably, right? So
I agree. I can make those changes. I'll check. I'll work with Ronak and I'll make sure I'll make the changes. Yeah.
okay, I appreciate. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's it basically.
Is there anything else I can also do with respect to SDK? You guys have any more tasks?
Yeah, so I will ping to you, Akash, right? So I will see where else we can help. We can ask for some help. We are starting to scope, and so it becomes more clear as we go, right? But I'll let you know where else you can help.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'll discuss with Ronak later, or you can share this document with me. Is that in both of us is fine?
Yeah, we can share the recording and then work with Ronak offline, right? And if you need my help, let me know. I'll help you and guide you guys, right?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Ronak.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
I think, Ronak, that's it from me. I don't know whether you have questions.
Not as of now.
Yeah. But what I would recommend is do the changes of this API ASAP. So let me finish this thread from API and only retain NF deployment, but would clean our REPL. Alternative is we need to introduce, right, v1 alpha 2.
So if we write a single controller for the provider kind of use case, right? That is the plan right now. Right? So we'll have a single controller in the workload cluster which understand the provider keyword, and based on that it will pull the right CRDs, right? That's the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
In that case, then my question is like this NF deployment right now. I forgot. I think there are some values which we have, right? What are the values which we have? I might have forgotten. Just
Oh,
can't go
so
back.
you can, by the way, you can still have three different reconcilers, right? You can still have an
Yes.
SMF, UPF, and AMF reconciler that uses NF deployment. But what you have to do is add this check in your code. So you can do now two things. Basically, you can say I make a generic controller that takes this, and in the code, I'll deal with both UPF, AMF, and SMF. That's option number one, right?
Correct.
Option number two is you write still a specific reconciler for SMF, UPF, and AMF. So your for object which you listen to is always NF deployment. And in that code, you have to do a statement like this to basically filter out the CR. So you basically say, I'm done if this provider is not something that you support.
Yeah. I got that. I know. I'm trying to understand like the current kep function which we have written, the package specialization function, which the pipeline which we have written.
Yeah.
I remember it. The difference is that it is going to watch on the interface, the data network, and the capacity, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't change. None of that changes.
Oh, correct. Yeah. All that logic remains. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. It remains. Yeah.
But what differentiates is that when it's generating, it is generating a kind of a SMF deployment or some a specific deployment. But right now we'll be going ahead with enough deployment as the value, and we'll add a provider keyword for the downstream.
So that means that I don't think in NF deploy there will be any specific code anymore, right? So that's the other beauty, I think, or the other good thing. So that means that for radio, if we introduce radio, we don't have to do any change.
I agree. I agree to that. But I see. But whatever we are generating, right? Whatever we are generating on the all of these deployment functions, that is N3, N4, and N6, right? In
Yes.
case of UPF, in case of UPF, when we generate this N3, N4, and N6, we wait a minute. What is it we generate? We generated with that is agnostic, right? The interfaces are agnostic. Okay, I got it.
Everything
No,
is
for
agnostic.
RAN, yeah, I understand. For RAN, it will still be interfaces because right now the function which we have written, we thought of only interfaces and data network. For RAN, will that be the same? But because for RAN, maybe there could be more fields which we want to look at. Is that the case?
So for RAN, it will be like N1 and 2, right? And you will have F1 if you do a split or something like that, right?
No. I'm talking about the umbrella key kind, right? The interface kind, capacity, and the network instances.
Yeah, stays the
Those are the
same.
three things which we see. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we also have this thing, and so probably, yeah, I did that at the end, right? At the very end. We also have the config ref, which is now called parameter ref, right?
Okay.
So we have a way to inject additional CRDs inside of NF deploy. You will see that as well, I think.
Okay.
If you look to your code right now, I did that change at the last minute, I think, at the very end. So we added, where did I do it? Nephew here. So in here, you probably, where is, it's in common, I think, right? Here. I have the old code somehow. I don't know. I need to. So in this course, this is on the internet. See here, I think in the meantime, API version, nephew requirement. See, dependency kind. So this is the one, right? So this one I introduced at the last minute.
I see. Okay.
This one allows you to inject additional resources that you specify in the cluster. So you don't have to do any change here, right? But this guy is going to take in an arbitrary KRM, right? Which we don't know, but we specify the group version kind. And the way I did it, Akash, is I did a change at the end, which I think I shared with you, is that so the resource that you put into the pipeline has this owner reference set already from the beginning, and that's how you know that it belongs to you. You see?
Yeah, I got that. But these values this will not be coming from any controllers, right? So for example, the interface, the IP values which are coming from the IPAM.
Yeah, it stays the
That
same. So there's no change. There's no change there.
No, but for the config ref, the values which we are injecting outside of these three parameters, will that also be? Sorry, I'm a little bit lagging behind on this thought process, but just bear with me. My question is that these config ref values, those are manually user entered, or how are they checking in these values? Can you show
So
me
they
an
will be
example?
part of the package. So in the package, there is a config ref file, right, that we reference, and that's the one that will be injected into that. Config ref these days is called parameter ref. So that's another change that we are doing. So, but it will become a parameter ref because you link it to the NF deployment, right?
Okay, got it. Okay, makes sense.
So
Yeah, let me.
the package contains it. So in the package, you basically create the additional resource, and you say I refer to the NF deployment, right?
Okay.
Now, whether there is no change, I don't know. We have to go through this a little bit, right? But I think there is hardly, maybe a few small changes, but the concept with dependency kind is done like this, that this is a dependency that you have, and that injects basically a configuration into the NF deployment. That's what this piece does. So I did that at the last minute.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Okay.
And that's how we can inject any arbitrary resource into the NF deploy, basically. That's what this piece basically does.
Yeah, I see that now. Okay.
All
Well,
right.
yeah, I see that gen config. Yeah, sorry. I'll check those values. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And I think, yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. Of course, I'm expecting you to ask some more questions going forward, but at least
Sure.
we have a little bit of a start. By the way, Akash, I documented this whole thing. Where did I do it? In automation, in the agenda notes. So if you look to this document here, right? And I kept it up to date as far as I know. So this tries to describe the whole thingy, right?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, okay.
This is kind of what describes the whole. So we decided, I changed it to parameter ref, right? So this is the name I've used.
No, yeah, I get that, but the biggest question I had was like I knew that these values will come from the config ref, but that those are on the most like compile time. But in runtime, we might want to change few values like IPs and all. IPs, I know we are doing it to a controller. Similarly, there could be some runtime values. How can we update it in the config refs? Do the package owners write their own controllers which will update these config refs, or is it different? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, if we need that, we need to write a function, right? And that can either come from the vendor or come from us if we believe that we have to do something on top of it, right? So it could be that that there are some things that we probably also have to mutate or change or so on going forward. But at the moment, we did not find anything at the moment, even not for the radio. But that doesn't mean it will not exist, right? So, but you're right, is that if we need to modify some of these parameters, we have to write a function probably to deal with that, right?
Okay, Got it.
But at the moment, we don't know. Yeah, we don't have a use case for that so far. But yeah, this can always come, right?
Got it. And what about the SRIUE interfaces and all those kind of values maybe for RAN that is required, right? These secondary interfaces.
Yes, it's the
This is
same. Yeah, but all the functionality we did in R1 we can reuse. So that's the good
use.
news. So no change.
Okay.
So we did a good job,
Okay.
I think, so far on that one.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, got it.
That's very good, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Like I did for Nokia, I did a BNG, right? So I did the BNG part, and also that I didn't have to do any change.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Hey, do you have a cap package for that? Can you share it with me? I just want to take a look into it.
I cannot share yet, but I'm asking for approval. But I will
Oh, okay.
because it's still within Nokia. But if I have it, I will. I want to share it because that's a real live function. So
I see.
yeah, from the moment I
Doing
have the
so,
green light, we will share. I will share.
these cap packages which you are preparing, is there anything you guys are doing? Because the Helm is very parameterized and kept is more of a mutating kind of a function, right? So is there a trick which you guys are following to convert Helm charts to kept functions, or how are you doing it? I find it very difficult to move from Helm to kept because it's two different paradigm of templating. I see.
I
That's
mean,
why
yeah, that's true. But what we are trying to do also is to decouple the infra from the network. And if you do that, you have way less parameters,
okay.
which of course helps. But I do agree with you. It's not yet. Kept is not yet at the same level. But for me, I did the experiment to see. Okay, I did the experiment for two reasons. One is, does it work? And secondly, what changes do we need to do for functions that it was not designed for, right?
Got it. Okay.
And does it work? So that's why I did it basically.
Yeah, but it's positive to know that we are able to move those RAM functions. That's great.
Yeah. But I do agree with you is that how many people are able to do this? I think that we still have a challenge there because it's still the knowledge is not, and it's still difficult in my view as well. Like what you said, that to do that. So that's where we have to improve, right?
I agree. Yeah. I was trying to move few of my few of my functions for some demo I was preparing. So I thought I will try to move a function.
Uh-huh.
I stuck to whatever the core DNS caching which we already prepared. I thought like maybe use it rather than having my own. So there is this there are all these test runs we have, right? So where we can simulate these runs. So I think there was some internal run Helm chart which we had. I wanted to use the same run but in a kept package mode, but I couldn't. It had way too many Helm parameters, so I found it very hard to. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. No, we have to improve there. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Appreciate your time. So I think Ronak, let's try to do the API changes ASAP, right? Let me finish my email, my thread here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then let's see what the people say, right? Because it's stupid if you okay, I submitted it already. Yeah, let's see what the people say. So don't do the changes yet, but I'll bring it up also this evening in the meeting. Or you can bring it up in the meeting, and if you want to join, right? And then yeah, once we have an approval here, let's go ahead and do this because the radio will be dependent on this.
Yeah, I think I won't able to join today's meeting. I'll see the recording tomorrow.
Okay, I will then ask the question. Yeah, I'll ask the question.
Yeah, because we have Ganesh Chaturthi.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I won't be able to join.
Okay, no problem. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, please share the recording.
Yes, I will. It's cloud recorded, so I will stop the recording right now. And then I will stop the recording.